Okay, I was outside in the sun and I couldn't see what button to push, so I had to go to the truck and stick my head inside, see the buttons.
Well, that's better than cold, freezing weather.
Hey, today is perfect day. Perfect day. Not 20 degrees heat and not 20 below zero.
Yeah, I mean, the weather up there you guys have, I was talking to a guy who does, like, gravel and, pavement stuff. And he says, like, one of the reasons why there's so many, because we have a lot of potholes in New York from the plows every year.
Yeah.
He said the reasons why the ground, it breaks up so easily is because, number one, they use, like, I guess an asphalt. And the weather, it changes so frequently. Like, it'll be really cold, and it'll be hot one day, warmer one day, and it's always changing, and it kind of breaks up the integrity of the pavement. But but he said Canada up there was just like it's either really cold or it gets hot one day or whatever. Or it's just like once it's cold, it stays cold. But
this year has been colder than I can remember. We didn't get that much snow, but cold was here most of the time. A lot of below zero weather, a lot of 10 below zero weather.
What do you think that has? Why do you think the reason that is? You think it's
Well, it has to have something to do with the slant of the planet has moved what was the North Pole weather down somewhat, and we're getting it. So last week, where I'm sitting now, there was 6 inches of snow. Today, wet grass.
Yeah.
And I did cleaning of the driveway so the mailman can get to the mailbox and cars can drive into the driveway. I cleaned that up until about a week ago. Today you can't find any snow from where I'm sitting.
Yeah. I mean,
so you got Danny on there too?
No, he's not on right now. I'm actually was gonna send him a message, see, if he wants to come on.
A number of people try to call me, but I don't answer. The cell looks at the number and says, "Not until you know who it is."
Oh yeah, we were supposed to give you a number. There's a guy. I gotta find the number. Those guys from Scotland. They wanted me to pass you their phone number, so when they call you, you would recognize it.
Okay, but not right now because I'm outside.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a pen here.
All right. So,
maybe you can send an email.
Oh, to Jenny?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Do something like that. That's cool. Yeah, so I got your post, and I'm that's the thing with you, Glenn. Like, it looks like a simple post, a few lines, couple lines, let's say. All right. And just looking up one word leads you to, like, it's linked to all this other stuff. Jacomo or Jacomo?
Giacomo.
Giacomo. That's linked to Paris, right? It's linked to, I mean, the most popular thing that pops up on Google is, the cologne, but I also saw it was linked to Missouri, the lake over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
well, it's my version of it is the replacement for the word Jesus on the chart. Big 80 is Jacomo.
oh, okay.
So when you start hearing instead of just smelling Jacomo being spoken of, you're getting close to end times.
Hmm.
The turnaround by the genetic engineers.
Turn around to what? Shut down. When I'm thinking of genetic engineering in this context, I'm thinking of the old lab that they had, right? That was kind of like a secret lab, and now over the past year or more, they've been trying to, I guess, shut down that lab. And recently,
the lab in Syria came into being at approximately 1300 BC.
Mm-hmm.
At the time of Egypt being modern for that time, Egypt having begun at about 3100, so about 1500 to 2000 years later, the genetic engineering knowledge that was pre-Ice Age began to be introduced. By the year zero, the model they wanted, which they call Jesus, which is a translation from Roman and French, je suis, I am. So they had found the recipe for followers. And that recipe was discovered and named Jesus. So it's not a person as much as a genetic engineered recipe of DNA to create the kind of personalities they wanted. Followers.
Hey, Glenn, what about?
Oh, yeah,
hey, Glenn,
Dana's on.
Hi, Dana.
Hey. So what would that personality be like pre Jesus?
Hey?
What would you said their personality of follower, like that kind of personality that they wanted after year zero? So what was that personality type or archetype like before that?
Create an empire, and the matching group that comes about later on, 1,500 years later, is British Empire.
Mm.
I was thinking this gene pool, when I look at like the Jesus symbolism and stuff, would this group be like what you would call like a bit masochist? Because when you look at a lot of the cult imagery, I was listening to a lecture. That guy Alan Watts, the Buddhist speaker, he said that in Mexico, their imagery, they would show like a lot of crucifixions, and basically what they thought was that if you're in pain, it would be people on like they'd have a lot of imagery of people being tortured or suffering, and I noticed that that's a line of thought in some of Christianity. Like they feel like if they're suffering for their sins, then they're in a good place.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get that. What I get from that is like masochism or something. Like some people are.
Well, it's don't fight back. We're setting the rules now. Don't fight back. Go along.
Turn the other cheek.
Yeah, turn the other cheek. We'll take care of you. You know.
Yeah.
We'll put you in wars, cause pestilence, famine, and disease, but don't fight back. Just remember, God's name is a dog backwards, and a dog backwards is feminine principle, which is, what do they call a feminine dog? A bitch.
Yeah.
So Mother Superior of the Grey Nuns fits the description perfectly for God. And the fact that they own the stock exchange confirms it.
Yeah. So what's the whole deal with, by, the current president right now, by him bombing Syria, he's just completing that task of erasing any evidence?
He's following instructions. His instructions come from the bankers. Okay. He would have been bankrupt had it not been for bankers and billionaires who got him back on track on condition that he do what he was supposed to do. And he's doing what he's supposed to do, which was to speak in a manner that everybody believes is ridiculed. He doesn't hide the fact that he's not telling the truth. Doesn't argue the point when people point it out. He just makes it worse. But it's all part of the program of saying you're at the end, fellows. You've turned the corner. You're about ready to pay the price of followers, and those who didn't follow were pissed off with. And when you start looking at that, you see in the history of the world groups of people who went around the world to create empires. And they all kind of failed in empires as much as they only got little pieces of things here and there. Like the Portuguese got Brazil, for example. The Spaniards got Mexico, but could never make the big steps forward to take over Asia or things like that. And the one that came the closest was the British Empire. And the ones that stopped them from attaining their goal of a world empire was the United States. And the United States is always regarded by British Empire loyalists as the ones that created the existing situation that would have been much better, they believe, had the Brits ruled the world. And therefore, they're pissed off. And it would make them, through MI6, the most likely contenders to want to get even with the United States. Many of their people, Empire loyalists, moved to Canada. A lot were sent back to be basically hidden soldiers for British Empire. And when the Lou happens, you can be certain that most of the problem will, in fact, have been created by the British Empire, MI6. The end result is, of course, the border between Canada and the U.S. disappears, and millions of people die on both sides of the border. And then Britain can come back.
Well, they made it clear that they have links to Canada and they own.
Yeah. We fought wars with the U.S., against the U.S., and France was on the U.S. side of things. And between France and the Americans, they prevented British Empire from going ahead.
So revenge.
Yeah. So people have been taught history in a manner in which they mistakenly understand who their worst enemies are. The worst enemies are on the northern border, not the southern border where Trump tries to lead it. The wall is the northern peninsula of Michigan. When it breaks, an inland tsunami begins to work its way through, and the first people to die are the first responders, police and border guards. The U.S. has a military base in New York near Ogdensburg called Fort Drum. They have to know something, or they wouldn't have put it there. After all, it's the Mountain Division that's at Fort Drum. And the mountains that they're fighting in right now are not in New York, because there ain't enough there in the way of mountains. They're in where the beginning was, the countries that have Istan at the end. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, all those. Istan is another way of writing the word Nazi.
Mm-hmm.
But the only real mountain they would come across near home base would be the Adirondacks and Montreal, Royal Mountain.
Montreal.
Real is royal in Spanish. Real Madrid, their football team.
So I saw on your post, I kind of skimmed like what I was researching, but that place, Lourdes in France,
Lourdes?
Pyrenees, Lourdes.
Yeah.
I thought is that like reminiscent of the Canadian landscape over there? Is that
it's the edge of Spain, on the French side of the border.
Yeah.
And that's a mountain range.
Mm-hmm.
And the story of Lourdes seems to be the story of something that happens within a cave. And Fatima is Portugal's version, around the corner on the Atlantic side, rather than on the Bay of Biscayne side. So the concept was that it was only in Europe that there was talk of Fatima and Lourdes as being a visit by the Virgin Mother. But then they added one in the east of the Mediterranean at about Serbia or up there. I never can pronounce the word. Father Van He used to talk about it all the time. And of course the Spanish set up in Mexico. But in fact, it was always kind of the same story. Virgin Mother, which is the story of a genetic engineering lab that makes babies and puts them in as hidden soldiers for the system. Most of them are instructed on border watching activities because they've designed a system that has sleeper cells of one kind, which is not necessarily the same as, say, the sleeper cells between India and China. In North America, they're designed for North America. In Mexico, they're designed for Mexicans. But here, what they don't want is people coming in who are not programmed to follow the system's instructions for North America. So that would explain why they got so pissed off at Jennifer, because she knows a lot about the things she's not supposed to know when you come to Canada. And by removing her, it made it easier for them to control. They work apparently with the second in command in embassies. I think they call them the chargé d'affaires. Those that are charged with making things happen is chargé d'affaires. Things that match what the system wants, not what the people want. They controlled all of the borders of Africa. Egypt was totally dominated by sleeper cells that came from Syria. So that's what the cell basically came to tell me, is that we're here to help you, but for us to help you, you have to understand that the big 8-0 that you have that came out of a 1881 Bible in England is basically the lab. What you have to view in your own mind is what came before and what's going to happen after. Because this is only a temporary laboratory so that all of the knowledge that needs to be gained by the people who came before but couldn't do it because they didn't have enough people to test it on will be allowed to be born, live, and die in this laboratory. So far, say 7.5 billion have lived, 7.5 billion are living today, and the number has been reached, and it's time for them to back it up, back down. And war, pestilence, famine, and disease can't do it everywhere. You also need cataclysmic events from nature. The word nature is you are an ant. You are part of the hidden ones that come and do things and take the blame for things, but the blame really belongs to the controllers of the system, not only those that are in hiding underground in the moho discontinuity. So we have to understand a couple of simple facts. Our existence on this planet, most of us, excluding Africans, began 2,000 years ago and on the verge of ending their existence. However, human beings didn't begin 2,000 years ago. The Big 80 says it began 4,000 BC, which is 6,000 years ago. However, that's not true. Everybody with half a brain knows that before the Ice Age, there were people.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people may have been only a few million. And no matter how much knowledge they had, they couldn't do the testing to find out whether they had worked it out truthfully or not. The minimum you can give to human beings prior to zero is 130,000 years. So if a few million people, survivers of 130,000 years compared to our measly 2,000 years, had figured everything out in theory and needed only to verify with practice, and that required a larger number of people than they were, but if you put a larger number of people than they were, they would want to beat them up, and the people from before the Ice Age would all be dead. So they went into hiding, and they fought the big war from underground. Antarctica was the first stop they went to, and when they first arrived, Antarctica was a green island, place just like North America, where you could grow things. And as the Ice Age progressed, they stayed more and more underground. Now, that period in time was around 24,000 BC. And they had to basically understand exactly what they were about to do. They were going to spend the better part of 20,000 years underground, planning. And then they would begin to make people in different parts of the world with different objectives, such as in the U.S., outer space. Everybody else that's in outer space today, like India and France and England and China, copied basically off the U.S. So now that they've worked out everything to do with war, pestilence, famine, and disease, it's time to shut things down. So Why would they want to shut it down, and what's the plan for after? Well, they want a population that will supply a hermaphroditic explorer that can be put in a space module, female in appearance, but as with the beginning of human beings, hermaphroditic, and can give birth to a clone of herself. And they'll deal with the need for males only if the need arises at a later date. So take what they did before, add it to what they want to do in the future, and you come to the very simple conclusion that they've learned the lessons they wanted to learn, and now's the time to get rid of the people who could beat them up. And they can't do it all with war, pestilence, famine, and disease, so flushing them is one good way of doing it, because you can handle that kind of thing and kill millions by inland tsunamis, but the best thing is you don't take the blame. Mother Nature takes the blame. Now, these people who came to tell me that can be classified in the same way as Lourdes and Fatima, with one major exception. Instead of talking female to kids, the language was now males to old males. And when I said, why me? They said, you earned it. You don't give up. But I said, I'm not a believer in ending up with no males. And that's when they said, well, we're going to name one female to join our group, and you have to choose who that is, because we can only confirm what you say you want or tell you that can't happen. And that's how Jennifer came about. And I passed over the right to pardon at the end to Jennifer, and retain the right to walk those who didn't deserve the equivalent of paradise to their door, where the new hell would be Antarctica, the opposite of the old hell, which is you go and burn up.
Yeah.
The new hell is you go and freeze. But you also have to teach them a lesson as they go, which is how they described it. Give them a 5-foot television screen, an oven, a microwave oven, and an electric blanket before they go. And they'll be happy until they find out there's no electricity. Just like they did to you.
Yeah.
So the word apparition, if I'm to believe what they have told me, and I have no reason to doubt, because I apparently am the first and only one who basically seen the cell as a group, or the cell plus their expert members, 144 in background. I have seen them. I have gone along with some of the lessons they wanted to teach me. And the most important lesson is perfect speed is being there. You don't have to take a day to go to Toronto and visit with us and then go back on another day. That can be done instantly. To do that, they took me from the farm, put me in some kind of vehicle, went what could have been only a minute away, sat me on a couch and said, now we wait. And we waited until at one stage of the game, I said, I got to pee. And they said, well, go. So I stood up and I was outside. And I sat down, I was back where I came from. Stood up again, I was outside. Sat down, went back where I came from. I did it a number of times. I'm not sure if it was 3 or 4 times, but just to check that I wasn't dreaming. And then they brought me back and they said, Paradise is another universe. That universe is far away as far as people are concerned, because there are 26 universes, and finally there will be 27, one in the middle. But the journey there, for those who earn it, is not a journey. It's perfect speed, because perfect speed is being there. And you have to prepare for that moment when you've given everybody enough chance, and then make the move with those who deserve it. How do you know who deserves it when you're Glenn Keeley? Who the hell am I to know? Well, they said, remember what the guy from the Ottawa Citizen told you on Parliament Hill. I said, what was that? He said, you're giving out information, and you're giving that information out for free. If you give anything out for free, what you're doing is telling the world you know exactly what it's worth. Nothing. So you have to charge a price. I said, but I don't want to charge a price. He said, you have to charge a price. Get a tub and tell those who listen to you and care to throw a toonie in the bucket, in the tub. That way, you won't have charged the least amount of money. You will have charged a reasonable amount of money for people who don't have any money. And that will be the fee to get on the transfer. I was going to say the train or bus. But it's buses and trains are for going places that take a while. This one will activate and happen. And they said one of the first things you should do is get some Adirondack chairs and put them out in front. And as people throw toonies in the bucket, buy more chairs. And when the chairs have reached the total number required, that's when the move will happen. What's the total number? Only creation will tell them. One of the things I found out about these chairs, and we're thankful to Jennifer for putting up the funds to buy 6 chairs. I had a taxi driver who put them together because they come in a box and they're not built. They need to be assembled. And he, the taxi driver, has used his Tuesdays on his day off. He gets 2 days off a week to assemble a chair. And right now there are 6 chairs. And I'm sitting in Jennifer's chair because she's at the head of the class. And next to Jennifer's chair is a chair that belongs to the man who provided her with safety when she was kidnapped here and eventually 74 days later, I think it was, dumped in California in a fixed deal with the police there. The intent was to grab a crazy woman off the plane and lock her up in some place that they could keep an eye on her forever. But in fact, that supposedly crazy woman answered all the questions of the police with absolutely no difficulty, which they normally give to people to find out if they're crazy or not. And Jennifer got away and met this person she used to know who had already agreed to take her in. So his name is Arthur. And Arthur is the guy who pulled out the sword stuck in a magnetic rock. And on the other side of Jennifer's chair is a chair dedicated to Doherty, which is the Far East version of the name George. And he's an artist who paints like Jennifer, but his paintings are mostly futuristic. And then as the people come, either by mail, such as you guys do now, but you had done it on the time you were here, a toonie will be added to the tub. And one day, when funds permit, you both will have a chair. Doesn't mean other people can't sit in them. It just means that it's in memory of those people that made this apparition happen. Because even though they say, I earned it, I alone can't do anything. Only a group of people coming together, numbers yet unknown, can put it together. And only Jennifer has the right to pardon some people who should not come, but may have, in fact, done something where they deserve to come. And if she pardons, that's it. They're allowed. Otherwise, I walk them to the door of hell. Exceptions, people that are returned to earth through the system that exists today, such as policemen and border guards and what have you. Those people who didn't do anything bad but didn't do anything good are handed back to be reborn on this planet. And if I know the gray nuns and those who do genetic engineering, it will be in a condition that is nastier than the one they left, so that in the end they'll be part of the team here, not part of the team there that has departed. They call the next universe the fifth. And they say that heaven is the one you're on now. And it'll change when a move later is made from the fifth to the sixth or the sixth to the seventh, because heaven is always on the journey further and further away from the criminals. In the old days on the planet, it was people migrated from place to place to get away from the bad guys. And that's basically how the U.S. came about and how Canada came about. Canada from France, U.S. from England. And then England took over the French control of Canada, with the exception of Quebec and parts of Manitoba. Now, over time, a large number of French-speaking people live in Ontario, and Canada is described as a bilingual country. But the Brits still have this stone in their shoe. And they're pissed off. And somebody has to push a button, because this cataclysmic event called the Sioux, the Lou at the Sioux, which goes all the way down to Flushing, New York, is not, quote unquote, nature. It is somebody is going to push a button and explode the biggest iron rock underneath the wall, which is the northern peninsula of Michigan, and the water will come flowing out in an inland tsunami. How much water?
A lot of water.
300 miles. 300 miles by 500 miles by 1,200 feet deep. What do you need? 40 feet? Did you say something, Dennis?
I think I was Jack. I said a lot of water.
You said how much water? I said a lot of water. And also, isn't I haven't heard you mention it in a while, but that from the other side, from the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, don't they have some type of device there?
Could be. All I know about the Atlantic, from what they've said, is whatever is left of Nova Scotia, if you look at the map of Canada or you look at Nova Scotia, it's in basically two parts that show the numbers 6 and 7. It is tied to New Brunswick. The place where it meets New Brunswick will be water, and therefore Nova Scotia, what's left, will be an island that has a role to play, which they're not describing, but later on. Nova Scotia means New Scotland. Scotland is the mountainous area of Great Britain. But I can see the water flowing overland all the way to Lake Ontario and then piling up at St. Lawrence Seaway, 1 mile across, 35 feet deep. Can't get through, goes back on land. The Canadian side is higher than the American side in altitude, so most of the water will flow on land across Michigan, Illinois, down along the St. Lawrence Seaway before it reaches New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and then most of the water ends up either going back to the St. Lawrence at Montreal or going south of New York's capital and heading for where the UN was created, Flushing, New York. So it's just a big toilet being flushed by someone unmentioned. Nobody has told me the name of the person who will push the button. But it's a must-do event in cleaning up the world, the people who lived in the laboratory.
Mm. Mm.
So their appearance on this property was done for the purpose of giving this farm a reputation as the place to go if you ever want to go to the fifth dimension and put your toonie in the tub so that that toonie can be used to buy more chairs and attract more people. Because everybody's got to get one chance. And 2 years are left before we hit 2020, and 2020 means you see clearly. It's a clear view of the future that you get. And how long after 2020 will it take for those people who have shown that they are on board for the fifth dimension to go? Could be any time, I believe, if I'm looking at the chart prepared by British Empire Loyalists, the Church of England. The latest I can imagine is 2062. The more likely event is any time now, up to 2022. And somebody else will have to guess if it happens after me, because from what I understand, I'm here at the end, along with Jennifer. And that could not be forever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only here to tell the story. Jennifer is here to lead the way. One stipulation made was that cats, all cats that die, plus 100 cats from here, will travel to the fifth dimension. Human beings would not have existed were it not for a big cat picking up an infant hermaphrodite and taking her into a cave where she was fed. And the key word in literature that we're supposed to look at but not quite believe the story because it's not a hermaphrodite in the story. The key word is Tarzan, because as the time approaches, the importance of tar sands will be on everybody's lips. Right now, there is a big fight between Alberta and British Columbia over the building of a pipeline that will carry oil from the tar sands to the Pacific Ocean. British Columbia doesn't want it until they have all the guarantees in place that would protect them from spillage. Alberta wants it right now because they're ready to have it flow right now. And Canada, as a federal government, is taking the side of Alberta. Get it done, even to the point of nationalizing the pipeline and having the government do it like they did with trains 100 years ago. But, that will begin a major fight between native people and non-native. They call themselves native, which starts with the word tan, but in fact they're known as indigenous. And Indi comes from India. And there are more indigenous tribes in British Columbia. About a third, I think, of all the tribes in Canada are in British Columbia. 200 out of 600. So most of the ones who are not in British Columbia have signed on for the pipeline because they want to work there and get paid for use of land, that type of stuff. But the ones in British Columbia who are not part of the pipeline activity directly are against it.
Oh, I got. I'll tell Dana later. Are you around the pen or are you still outside? Oh no, I forgot. I'm emailing Jenny. To remind.
I don't know what you just asked.
No, never mind. I was. Never mind.
Yeah. So anybody that you speak to who want to come here, you can tell them they can come, but there's a fee, and that fee is $2. And their $2 will go towards buying a chair that will have their name on eventually.
Well, I know you probably won't take American Susan B. Anthony's.
You'll have to cash in some 2-1 someplace.
Yeah. Oh.
And I kept a secret to myself. If people don't have it, they can come anyways. I'll throw in the $2 from my pension fund.
I'll throw in something too if I have it. If they don't have it, I'll pay for. I'll pay for them.
Yeah.
If they really don't have it.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Unless you have a question.
Dana probably has a question. I mean, I have, you know, the post regarding the post. I saw certain words in there like dough, DOE, right? Like you have a reason for using that word, right? Because you dropped off the letter S, right? When in that context, it says how dough the name Campbell sound when placed next to the name Lord and Fatima, right?
How does?
That's what I thought, but there's no S on that word. It's just DOE. So I thought that was.
I'll let Jennifer know because I think.
So you want me to change that?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's good thing I brought that up because that's because every character here is.
Yeah, just add an S. That's why I couldn't figure out what you were talking about.
Yeah. I wonder if they messed with the email again. Okay, let's see. I'm doing it as we speak right now. I wonder how that would change in the code by you just dropping off the letter S.
Well, dough, of course, means without a name or without description. It's can be anybody. But the word here is does.
Well, why did you want to post on this site? Because I remember, like a while ago, you didn't want to. I didn't think you wanted to post on this thing because.
Well, that was until I found out that most of the people going to the site have some means of transferring from there to someplace else or some other site. And I found that the mix is sufficiently large. There are people from each economic strata. There are geographical mixes. There are all kinds of things. So if a person only viewed the thing for an instant, it may make a difference around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they believe or not, there's an end product, you know. And I'm not here to convince people. I'm just here to receive them and answer questions that I can answer until Jennifer takes that role. Then my role is on the construction side, you know, preparing what the cell will have offered as the total amount of money needed to build what they want to build, which is mostly underground. that's my eventual role. So right now I'm sitting on Jennifer's chair.
Keeping it warm for her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's still a few hours of sunlight out there, you know.
Yeah, and I gotta go feed some animals.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't want to take all your sunlight time away.
Thanks for calling. We'll speak to you another time.
Thanks for
receiving
me.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye for now.